Here's what you actually need to know. President Trump posted on Truth Social that a dividend of at least $2,000 per person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone, funded by tariff revenue. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed the income threshold would likely be under $100,000 a year. That means if you're collecting Social Security, SSI, or SSDI, you would almost certainly qualify. But here's the part nobody is telling you straight. This is still a proposal, not a policy that is passed. The president cannot unilaterally send checks. He needs congressional approval. And Bessent himself wouldn't confirm whether Americans would receive an actual check, saying the $2,000 could come in the form of tax cuts instead. So before you make any financial decisions based on headlines, stay right here. Because in this video, we are breaking down exactly who is on the eligibility list, what the real timeline looks like, and what steps you should be taking right now so you don't miss out if this gets approved. Here is your full 2,300+ word body script written in a deeply conversational, paragraph-based format. No bullet points, no key points, just flowing, engaging storytelling your audience will stay with from start to finish. So let's go all the way back to where this whole thing actually started, because that context matters more than most channels will ever bother to tell you. Back in July of 2025, President Trump first floated the idea of sending money directly back to the American people. Money funded not by borrowing, not by printing, but by the tariffs being collected on imported foreign goods. That idea got a little buzz. A senator named Josh Hawley from Missouri actually introduced a bill around it called the American Worker Rebate Act. And then it kind of went quiet for a few months. Most people didn't hear about it. But then November 2025 rolled around, and that's when everything exploded. On November 9th, 2025, President Trump posted on Truth Social saying, "People that are against tariffs are fools. We are taking in trillions of dollars. A dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone." And just like that, it was everywhere. Social media, YouTube, Facebook groups, news channels, everyone was talking about it. And if you're watching this right now, there is a very good chance that post is the reason you started searching for answers in the first place. So let's give you those answers, one honest piece at a time. Now, here is what the White House actually said in the days that followed, because this is where you start to understand how complicated this really is. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that President Trump remains committed to sending each American a $2,000 dividend check, and that his team of economic advisors were actively looking into how to make it happen. That sounds encouraging. But then Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, the man who actually controls the money side of this, stepped in front of cameras and started pumping the brakes just a little bit. Bessent said the administration was exploring whether the dividend would come in the form of direct payments, temporary tax relief, or another form entirely, including tax cuts like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, or deductibility on auto loans. So right there you see the very first sign that the word check might not literally mean a check in your mailbox. It might mean a tax benefit. It might mean something else, and that distinction matters enormously for people living on fixed incomes right now. Let's talk about the income limit, because that question comes up constantly, and the answer has actually been fairly consistent across multiple officials. According to the Trump administration, these checks would be directed toward low and middle income Americans, with an income cap likely around $100,000 per year for individuals or families. So if you are collecting Social Security, receiving SSI, or drawing from SSDI, and your total annual income is under that $100,000 threshold, which is the reality for the overwhelming majority of American seniors, you would almost certainly fall within the eligibility range if this program ever gets formally approved. And that's an important word, if. We're going to keep coming back to that word, because being honest with you about it is more valuable than just feeding you hype. Now let's talk about the money, where it is supposed to come from, and why that has become one of the biggest sticking points in this whole debate. The entire premise of these payments is that tariffs have generated enough revenue to pay for them. President Trump claimed in his post that the U.S. government had collected $600 billion from tariffs in 2025. However, economists disputed that figure. The Bipartisan Policy Center said that U.S. gross tariff revenue in 2025 was $289 billion, less than half of Trump's stated number. And here's where it gets even more complicated. A one-time $2,000 per person rebate for those making less than $100,000 per year would cost an estimated $450 billion, which is approximately twice as much as the total revenue expected to be raised by the administration's tariff hikes in 2026. So the math is already tight before you even get to Congress. And speaking of Congress, that's the part that most of the viral posts and clickbait videos online are completely skipping over, and it is absolutely the most critical piece of information you need to understand. Any dividend payments, like the 3 rounds of stimulus payments issued during the pandemic, would have to be authorized by Congress. The President of the United States cannot just write a check to every American on his own. That is not how the system works, regardless of which party is in office. It requires a bill to be written, voted on, and passed by both the House and the Senate, and then signed into law. And right now, there is no such bill. There are bills that have been proposed. Senator Hawley's bill is still sitting in committee. A separate bill by a congressman named Tim Burchett was introduced in the House. But none of these have moved forward with any real momentum. Now, here's something even more recent that you absolutely need to know about because it changes the picture significantly. The U.S. Supreme Court struck down many of Trump's tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which was the legal foundation underpinning a large portion of the administration's tariff policy. Following that Supreme Court defeat, and with an ongoing partisan battle in Washington, experts began saying that congressional approval would be especially difficult to secure. One certified financial planner at Bankrate named Stephen Cates said it plainly, that the odds of this policy moving forward had dropped dramatically, and that without sufficient political support to get it through Congress, the entire idea might simply remain aspirational. But here's what's interesting, and this is genuinely new information as of just days ago. A Democratic senator named Martin Heinrich from New Mexico recently introduced new legislation that would create a tax rebate for families hit by higher costs from Trump's tariffs. If enacted, the rebate would give joint filers making under $180,000 a year a payment of $200 plus an additional $600 for each dependent child, starting in the 2026 tax year. Now, why does that matter? Because it shows that this idea is not dead. It has actually crossed party lines. Both a Republican senator and a Democratic senator now have versions of relief legislation in front of Congress. One economist noted that since both sides of the aisle have proposed bills to implement these refunds, it should be possible to find bipartisan support for this. And bipartisan support, meaning Republicans and Democrats working together, is the single most realistic pathway to getting any kind of check actually passed into law. So let's be real with each other for a moment, the way a trusted neighbor would be, not the way a headline is written just to get your click. Right now, today, in March of 2026, there is no check coming to your mailbox. There is no direct deposit scheduled. There is no form to fill out, no website to register on, no phone number to call. If anyone contacts you saying you can claim your $2,000 check right now, it is almost certainly a scam. There is no official eligibility process, no forms, and no IRS guidance on this proposal as it currently stands. That warning cannot be stated strongly enough, because scammers absolutely follow these news cycles. They see seniors searching for this information, and they build fake websites, send phishing emails, and make robocalls claiming you just need to verify your social security number to receive your payment. Do not fall for that. The government will never ask you to confirm your information through an unsolicited email or a third-party website to receive a stimulus payment. History shows that during the COVID pandemic, the IRS sent stimulus payments directly to people's bank accounts using data already filed with previous year's tax returns. No third party, no form to fill out, no special registration required. If these checks ever do become law, that is almost certainly how it would work again. Now let's talk about what this could realistically mean for seniors specifically, because there is a layer to this conversation that almost no one is having online. For millions of Americans over 65, Social Security is the primary or even the only source of monthly income. The average Social Security benefit right now sits somewhere around $1,900 a month. Meanwhile, a Yale Budget Lab analysis found that the increase in prices caused by tariffs was expected to cost each household roughly $1,700 on average in 2025 alone. That means the very tariffs that are supposed to fund your potential $2,000 check may have already cost your household a significant portion of that same amount in higher grocery bills, higher medication costs, and more expensive everyday goods. That is not a political statement. That is just arithmetic, and you deserve to know it. There's also the question of what form this relief could take, and this has evolved over the past several months in ways that are worth paying attention to. Early on, Trump's post clearly described a cash dividend. But as the proposal moved from a social media post toward the reality of Washington politics, the definition started to shift. Treasury Secretary Besant mentioned tax cuts. Besant also suggested that if the rebates do become available, Americans should consider not spending the funds immediately. Other officials mentioned possibilities like increased standard deductions, which would reduce what you owe in taxes but would do nothing for retirees who already don't pay income taxes because their Social Security income is too low to be taxed. That is a crucial distinction. A tax cut helps people who pay taxes. A direct check helps everyone. And the difference between those two approaches could determine whether this relief actually reaches the people who need it most. Let's also acknowledge something that often gets lost in the noise of political coverage. Consumer confidence in the United States collapsed into deeply negative territory at the end of 2025, reaching its lowest point since the peak of pandemic-era inflation in 2022. That is not a political talking point. That is a measurement of how real everyday Americans are actually feeling about their financial lives right now. People are stressed. Groceries cost more, prescription drugs cost more, energy bills are higher, and when a president says help is coming, people pay attention. They have to because they need that help. So the fact that you're watching this and searching for real answers isn't just understandable, it is completely reasonable. The frustrating reality is that Washington moves slowly, and the distance between a president posting something on social media and a check actually arriving in your bank account can be years, or sometimes the check never comes at all. Here is what the honest best case scenario looks like right now, based on everything that has been reported across multiple credible sources. If the political climate in Congress shifts and some version of a bipartisan relief bill gains traction, perhaps combining elements of Senator Hawley's proposal, Senator Heinrich's new bill, and the administration's stated intentions, you could see some form of financial relief passed later in 2026. When Trump was asked about the timeline in January, he said the checks would come toward the end of the year. That was a loose statement without a firm commitment, but it does signal that the administration has not walked away from the idea entirely. The key variable, as it has always been, is Congress. And given the current political environment in Washington, nothing is guaranteed. What you can do right now, practically speaking, is protect yourself and stay informed. First, make sure your banking information on file with the IRS and the Social Security Administration is current and accurate. When COVID stimulus checks were sent out, millions of seniors faced delays simply because their direct deposit information was outdated. If your bank account has changed, update it. Second, do not pay anyone anything to receive this money. If it comes automatically, the same way your tax refund or Social Security payment does. Third, be very skeptical of websites, social media ads, or emails that claim to have a list of eligible recipients or a special registration process. There is no such list being maintained right now, and anyone claiming otherwise is either misinformed or trying to scam you. Stay here with this channel, because as this story develops, and it will continue to develop throughout the rest of 2026, we will keep bringing you the actual updates, the verified information, and the real details. Not the hype, not the clickbait, not the panic. Just the truth delivered straight so you can make the best decisions for yourself and your family, because you've worked too hard and paid into this system for too long to be misled by noise. You deserve real answers, and that's exactly what we're going to keep giving you.